We'll start off with some good news in our wake-up conversation. On November the 29th, troops of the 28th Task Force Brigade successfully repelled a large-scale terrorist attack on Chibok communities. According to the press statement by the Nigerian Army, over 300 insurgents launched a coordinated assault around 2:50 a.m. But the troops, acting on timely intelligence, swiftly took up battle positions and engaged the attackers in a fierce 2-hour firefight. As daylight broke, the terrorists began retreating towards the Sambisa forest, only to be intercepted near Azil Bridge by 25 Brigade troops, guided by drone surveillance. A precision airstrike from a Super Tucano aircraft scattered the fleeing militants. No casualties or equipment were lost, underscoring the Army's readiness and firm commitment to national security. And this is what we're talking about. This is taking the battle to them. These are the reports we want to hear. We don't want to wake up on a Monday and hear that bandits overran a Chibok community. This is the way to go, and hopefully, henceforth, the government will give the security agencies and the armed forces all the necessary support to carry out missions like this. And this underlines the very value of intelligence gathering, because when you have intelligence, you are one step ahead of your enemy.
Absolutely.
And then you can plan accordingly. Even while they were retreating, they were still engaged by a brigade of the Nigerian Army, and also there was close air support provided by the Nigerian Air Force. The Nigerian Air Force actually did release some of the footages of the air interdiction on their Instagram page, just to show the level of damage and they inflicted on this terrorist. So some good news. We're looking forward to more of this. I believe the president's marching order and a state of declaration is now a state of emergency declaration on security is now in full effect.
That's right. It's also good news because Nigeria's been waiting for a positive story to kind of like give us some form of understanding on what the government is doing. Because it probably seems like there was a lot of talk, and Nigerians, absolutely, Nigerians have continued to say, oh, it's all talk and no action. Especially when that one that took place in Maga did happen, where the Kebbi State governor had come out to say, I do not understand. Right before the incidents did take place, you did have military personnel or security operatives who were on ground. As soon as they left, then these guys actually stung and then they attacked. So when you see stories like this, for us as journalists, it also helps us to be able to balance the equation and say, okay, fine, what was done, what has been done, and so on and so forth. There's also a critical concern. What lessons? Yes. There's also a critical concern as well, which has to do with the fact that a brigadier general was murdered, was killed. Talking about Brigadier General Uba. And normally, if you speak to any military personnel and the security operatives we've had on the show here, they will tell you that it is always consequential. Yes. That when you do that, you expect to see the military show you that, listen, reprisals, of course, reprisals. But it seems like everywhere was quiet. Nothing happened. And then
I guess the reprisal is what we're witnessing.
I mean,
or what we witnessed
some have tagged it to be that way, yeah. But let's see what Nigerians are saying as we kick off on a Monday morning with this story. Let's see how Nigerians are reacting to it. Just read this post, and please read it with a brain. Over 300 terrorists faced the army that was shooting for 2 hours. Now, this is where it gets interesting. 300 terrorists shooting at army for 2 hours, and the army overpowered them. Yet, no arrests made, no terrorists injured, no terrorists killed. What does that mean?
I mean, I really don't understand what it was saying. But of course, there will be casualties. Maybe the army just didn't mention it in their tweet. You can be facing live rounds, Air Force bombings, and you wouldn't have casualties. I'm sure a number of the terrorists were neutralized. But next time, because of people like the online doctor, I believe if the Nigerian army is bringing out tweets and statements, it should cover absolutely everything. And if they have figures on casualties that were lost, they should mention it. Minding biz. said, stop, too much talk and complete the assignment. Nigerian army has been infiltrated. Nigerian intelligence structure too has been compromised too. Let's talk more work, we'll do the magic, says Minding Biz. Okay. And Professional Happy Dude says, 300 terrorists, how many were killed and how many were arrested? Nigerian army. He's posing that question to them. Amen Amin says, well done to our armed forces. We thank you for your service. And Kashani says, why do you always wait for them to attack first? You have jets and drones. Why are you waiting for terrorists to leave their camp and attack you? Then you repel them and celebrate it as victory. What's really going on in this country? We also have Queen B. She says, but why will the terrorists be the ones always on the offensive and assault on the Nigerian army? What stops the military from being the ones going on the offensive and taking the battle to the terrorists and destroying them once and for all, says Queen B. Food for thought there. Now, Joe, from a public relations perspective, you need to, troubleshoot all sorts of situations. That's why you have breakout sessions and silos to, discuss some of this strategy or your communication message, poke holes in it within the organization before it's released to the public. Because once it goes out, it's out and questions will be asked. Do you think the Nigerian army should have provided information on if this terrorist, if there were arrests made and the number of terrorists killed? Because they were the ones that started with the figure. They put out a round figure, 300 terrorists. So,
Gbenga,
it's not our business.
So, it is our business. It is our business because we also, as I always go back to what we do here every morning, so we can, those who are watching us either from the government angle or from Nigerians in general, they understand that our job here is basically looking at all sphere of whatever story we are touching on. And just a few minutes ago, we're here saying this is good news, right? But now we've been able to tilt to the other side by seeing what Nigerians are saying. And we've seen another angle to the good story. And what's the other angle? Nigerians are now asking for credibility. They're now asking for you to ensure that whatever you're saying is transparent. So there's transparency, there's credibility with the story, and accountability as well. So it's basically what I would call transparency, accountability, and credibility. You can call it TAC or turn it to that way, CAT, whichever you want to say. But you see, CAT is very key in this kind of story, if you look at it from a public relations point of view, and I'll explain why. Gbenga, when the Brigadier General was killed, sadly, remember there was a press release that was put out as well on X. That denied it, that no, he's still alive. And eventually, his life was taken in a very dastardly bad manner. And it made Nigerians who have been following the cases of insecurity lose trust completely on the information that is being passed from that certain channel from the military. So I understand why we're seeing these messages. They're like, you're talking too much.
Although you've casted doubts in the minds of Nigerians.
If they're 300 and for 2 hours, you're saying that there were no casualties, either from both sides. And
they didn't mention it. But
they didn't mention it.
But they said on their own side, no equipment was damaged and no life was lost. But of course, they feel Nigerians should put 2 and 2 together and use their common sense there. Of course,
but should we allow them to do that in this time?
Exactly. You
so
should
in this case,
state it.
Exactly.
Even if it's so obvious, you should state that the number of them lost their lives in the firefight.
Exactly.
Even if you don't give figures.
If there's a fire incident, you mentioned that, during the fire incident, XYZ persons were declared. I mean, take a look at the issue that's happening in, is it in Japan or Korea? Hong Kong, I beg your pardon. We keep seeing how the numbers were rising, even though they couldn't get a definite figure. They could tell how many people were missing. Oh, this person were missing. Some families were escaped. Oh, I have like 4 family members there. It helps for closure to understand how the event may have started and how it ended. So I think this should be a clarion call as well to the handler, the public relations officer, the news, the one who interacts with the people in terms of the public. Please try and do more We understand that it is a turbulent time where before you put out an information, you want to be careful so you don't smear the image of the presidency, the country, and so on.
We also understand the sensitivity of national intelligence and that. I mean, this information Nigerians are asking about, there's no way it will compromise national intelligence. It's not like one of those news that you have to file under state secrets. It's open information, and Nigerians do deserve to hear, like you said. But let's move on to another story. Joe, you want to take
let's move on to another story. Still talking about insecurity. Well, we just talked about the success of Nigeria's military just over the weekend, although a few Nigerians, or a cross-section of Nigerians, do not believe it. But then again, let's tell you somebody who is talking tough. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is actually facing a fresh pressure to intensify Nigeria's fight against the banditry after former President Olusegun Obasanjo publicly challenged him to flush out criminal elements destabilizing the country. Now, he spoke at the 9th Dakpo Okpeye annual book launch in Lagos. Now, Obasanjo warned that if the government fails to protect the citizens, Nigerians may be forced to seek help elsewhere. His remarks sparked a swift rebuttal from Sunday Dare, who's a special advisor to the President of Media and Public Relations, who accused Obasanjo of selective amnesia. Again, he's not the first person accusing him, reminding the public that Boko Haram's roots trace back to Obasanjo's own administration. Now, Dare insisted that the Tinubu-led government is committed to tackling insecurity through coordinated military and strategic efforts, firmly rejected any notion of outsourcing national defense. But I don't know if we have that video. We'd like to take a look at that video first, and then we'll take a look at the response, and then we'll dig in to see what Nigerians are indeed saying.
No matter what religion you belong to, no matter where you come from, no matter what profession, we Nigerians are being killed, and our governments seem to be incapable of protecting us. We are part of the world community. If our government cannot do it, we have right to call on the international community to do for us what our government cannot do for us. And for anybody to say because those who are being killed belong to this region, belong to this religion, belong to this tribe, and then others too are being killed, cannot be an acceptable excuse. Before I left government, I know we had capacity to pick up anybody in Nigeria who commit crime anywhere. The capacity that we didn't have then is after we have identified and located such a criminal, we have no capacity to be able to pick him up without moving on land or by air. Now we have capacity. With drones, you can sling them off. You can take them out. Why are we not doing that? Why are we not apologizing? Why are we negotiating?
These are very, very critical questions, Gbenga.
Very critical.
Very critical questions.
Points that he
Very.
made. Elder statesman, Civil War veteran, general, and two-time democratic president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, there speaking, visibly angry and upset, and rightly so too, looking at the way terrorism has been treated with kids' gloves. You look at Katsina State, for example, a number of local governments, more than 10, have entered one sort of peace deal or parley with terrorists. And what does that tell you? It means, like one of our analysts will always say, they've brought franchise into criminality. It means it's a business, it's an industry, because why are you negotiating with them? You're the state. The state is the supreme authority in the country. They have the armed forces, they have all the resources they can. There's no way a bunch of criminal elements should be able to hold Nigerians to ransom. And that's what former President Olusegun Obasanjo was saying there, that look, this trying times, if you cannot protect the lives of Nigerians, then Nigerians have a right to seek for help somewhere else if you don't have the capacity. And I'm a bit disappointed that there's a response.
Yeah, there's a response. Let's also see if we can put up that response. There's well, that response came from the special advisor to the president, Sunday Dare. He said, recent comments by a former president and a few habitual presidential aspirants attempting to paint the Tinubu administration as unable to protect Nigerians are not merely hypocritical but ignoble. They ignore the hard truth. Nigeria is facing terrorists, all of them, by every definition, be they international, regional, or local. Yet the very individuals who looked away when these threats first sprouted now want to sit in judgment. Nigerians know better. Well, he went on to highlight some of the things which I'll take a look at. One, he said Nigeria is under attack by terrorists, full stop. No euphemisms, no soft language. The people killing Nigerians, raiding villages, kidnapping innocents, blowing up infrastructure, challenging state authority are terrorists, whether they fly a foreign flag or none at all. Nigeria today confronts a multi-layered terrorist ecosystem that includes international designated terror organizations, ISIS-linked and Al-Qaeda-linked franchises across the Sahel, local violent extremist groups masquerading as bandits, cross-border terrorist cells exploiting porous frontiers, ideological insurgents and criminal terror hybrids operating in ungoverned spaces. These actors collaborate, they share money, ideology, weapons, intelligence, and logistics. Their goal is the same. But the point is, I don't want to spend too much time reading through all of his reasons.
Yeah.
He made very good points. Let's be honest. These are very true points.
Yeah.
Very
So
key.
he could have done this without insulting language.
Now that's where we come to. So take a look at point 3. We can stop here. Tinubu's strategy meets a threat head on. President Tinubu is not facing a conventional security challenge. He's confronting terrorism in full spectrum form, both internal and transnational. His strategy is clear: kinetic pressure, modernizing military capability, intensifying intelligence-led operations, squeezing terrorist mobility and dismantling logistics, retaking and holding territory. We're going to pause here for a while and analyze that statement on kinetic pressure, which we know, Gbenga, whether we like it or not, as journalists, we take a look at stories concerning this, and it's not really 100%. And we'll say that because modernizing military capability, we've spoken to some security experts, and they have said here that they do not have the firepower that these same terrorists do have. In terms of,
I mean, that's debatable, because if you look at the Air Force platforms, the Nigerian Air Force, especially under the government of Muhammadu Buhari, has never been as advanced as it is. It's taking on unmanned aerial vehicles. It has Super Tucano jets. It's never been like that since independence. We have one of the most modern Air Force since the creation of the Nigerian Air Force. So I'm not really sure about that.
But in terms of the budgeting,
logistics.
In terms of budgeting, logistics.
When we're talking about fighting men, maybe the ammunition or some of those platforms don't get to them on time, or they have to ration bullets and all of that. But I will tell you that we don't. It's not.
Is it 100%?
Have more firepower than the.
But is it 100%? That what was mentioned, is it 100%?
It's I wouldn't say it's 100%. Maybe there's some truth in it, but I don't think they have more firepower than the Nigerian.
Anyway,
yeah.
I think the point of highlighting that terrorists have started under President Olusegun Obasanjo, and that he never dealt with it.
Was that necessary?
Up until now, and so on and so forth, and saying selective amnesia and the likes, and a few statements here and there. It's also debatable because you do recall that prior to when Boko Haram had indeed surfaced, whether we like it or not, there were arrests that were made. Arrest was made, even though we do recall that the leader back then had died in custody, as rightly mentioned. There are also instances where we saw a surge in insecurity during a particular time. If you say from 2009, and then you also mentioned 2015. And remember that one of the policies, or one of the things, let me use things, that were sold to Nigerians was that if a certain former president, who's late now, former President Muhammadu Buhari, gets into power, is going to use his former general, his experience, his acumen to completely end insecurity. You can check online.
But
it's there. It's free. You see it there.
I mean,
that was the major selling point.
Thank God for the luxury of hindsight. What we're witnessing today is as a result of him not dealing.
Now, that's where I'm going to. So if you're blaming, let's do this bigger. If you were in school and you didn't pass a particular course because you said the teacher who was teaching then wasn't good, and then they changed the teacher, and your son still comes and didn't pass the course, and then they changed the teacher again, and your son's son, who happens to be your grandson, didn't pass the course again. Is it really the teacher that is the problem, or is it that something is wrong? Exactly. So if you're blaming President Olusegun Obasanjo way back, and by the way, the internet we're enjoying today,
and then
that's one person who brought it in.
What is wrong in accepting criticism?
Yeah.
I mean, and saying, okay, we understand your position, thanks for voicing out as an However, we're doing A, B, C, D, E, F, and let it rest there. This bandying of words, I don't think is necessary, and you're not doing yourself any good, because at the end of the day, he still went on to list the points of what they are doing to deal with the insurgency. Sometimes let's take criticism for the face value of it and
absolutely
do something about it.
The
former president is really concerned, and that's why he decided to voice out the way he did. You could see the passion in his voice. It was visibly angry. That why are we negotiating? I mean, it's insulting, to say the least. Yeah.
You mentioned Katsina, and then you wonder again why a former president would not be angry. We've even seen the National Assembly, an assembly that has decided to part ways with Nigeria's, in quotes, national anthem and adopted the political anthem. We've seen where they themselves now are talking tough and speaking. They're afraid, some members, and they're afraid for their lives. They're saying if the police are taking off from them, they're soft targets. Secondly, they're crying and shouting, how come the insecurity is now becoming even worse? Although we have said that from last week, National Assembly is doing what they can, but you cannot compare it to the Green Chamber, who are even doing more, spending time deliberating. It's a whole lot. So we can get that point. But then again, that's all we're going to take on Wake Up Conversations. Most importantly, we would like you to be part of the program. Feel free to drop a comment or two on all our socials. Shout out to Mokoye Chukwemeka. He says, good morning, Joe and Gbenga. Good morning to you. Thanks for watching. And Larry Oloyede says, believe Nigerian army at your own peril. Well, I think we've highlighted why some have lost a little bit of trust there because of what they actually did see earlier on.
But let's take a listen. Let's look at what Nigerians are saying with regards to the last story we shared. Affidavit Professor Epon Michael says he has the authority to speak on this issue. The only person who has given Nigerians a very decent economy, largely stable and secured country. El Captain says, people forget too quickly that the roots of today's security mess didn't begin yesterday. If Obasanjo genuinely wants to help, the bare minimum is honesty about the foundations laid during his own era and the cracks that were ignored. To be fair, this government is actually running at several fronts at once. You can feel the push on the economy, infrastructure, coordinating with the military, even diplomatic alignment. It's not perfect, but it's movement. So yes, let him use his influence the way he happily does for other countries instead of shadowboxing an administration that's finally treating security like a national emergency. If the goal is a safer Nigeria, then everyone who claims patriotism should be rowing in the same direction, not trying to rewrite their legacy. Interesting point there. And I wonder why former President Olusegun Obasanjo is the most vocal of all Nigerian and leaving Nigerian ex-presidents. Candid Truth says, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo has never put his immense influence behind any government in Nigeria. Rather than doing that, he would go all out to undermine them. Baba, can you go to any state in Nigeria and praise the governor there for doing well? But has anyone ever heard him praising or acknowledging the goodness in policy of any government at federal level? Interesting points to note there. And that's why I love Wake Up Conversations. You get a potpourri of different opinions.
Absolutely.
from different
Absolutely.
Nigerians, and
I
it
like
makes you
this
see
one.
things. Yeah.
It says, your tweet would have been better appreciated if it highlighted what the government has actually done to make the country safer than it was before. Nigeria needs real security and not politicking government, and the president must deliver on his responsibilities.
Absolutely.
And that's it, and that's it. But then again, Gbenga, I'm sure our viewers are wondering why we've highlighted more on these stories and not touched on the bigger one, which went down over the weekend. I need to add more oomph to my voice, you know, the ambassadorial list that did come out. If you're part of those or one of those who said, what is going on? Well, don't worry, we're going to dissect that story.
And I'm also wondering why, I mean, when the initial third list, the list of 3 ambassadors came out, they should have just combined everything, because it took less than 48 hours before this list was.
And then Nigerians are wondering if this list was what had taken 2 years,
Yes.
4 months to come up with this list.
Controversial list like
Ooh, what a
What
touch
is
on
it
that.
with- but anyway, we'll get to
We'll talk about that, don't worry.
Yeah.
I like the fact that we didn't discuss it on Wake Up Conversations. We're leaving it for when we have
teaser.
our
Yeah.
guests, our in-house guests. And then we have a special too. We'll be heading to Abuja. Something spectacular, like Gbenga mentioned, will be happening in
Something
Abuja.
massive.
Massive concerning News Central.